All right, guys, welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. I'm here with a wonderful, very anticipated author interview, Mr. Tim McKay. How are you, my friend?
Very good, thanks. I'm glad to finally get to do this a little earlier than we expected.
Yeah, it was. Well, kind of like both because we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
But then we scheduled something for a couple weeks from now, and then based on what you told me, which is kind of like a cool announcement you've got, we're doing it now. What is that announcement?
Yeah, well, I guess right off the bat, the announcement is, as
Yeah,
of about an hour ago, my second book is live. And you are
awesome.
all the very first people to hear it, except for my best friend from high school. I feel like that's fair. He gets dibs.
Of
Then
course.
all of you.
All right. Well, we're going to make that announcement quite a few times because I feel very honored to have taken, as far as my interview goes, taken part in that, man. I'm super happy for you.
Really
Kay's Hidden
appreciate it.
Bookshelf, she ought to know. Maybe we did it a little too early, but we'll just say it again real quick. His second book is live as of an hour ago?
Yeah. I tried to time it well. Amazon is so good these days that I tried to time it. Last time I put a book out, it took about 4 hours to go live, which is still impressive.
It
And
is.
this time it was live in an hour and a half. So anyways.
That's cool, man. It's like huge what the hell? Huge congratulations. Did anything
Thank you
go
so
wrong?
much.
So could you tell us about your first book, the name, and also the name of your second, kind of the
Yeah.
blurb of your series and the name of your series? I know I gave you a few things to do there, but man, this is all about you. Just tell us about what you're writing.
Yeah. So sure. Book names first. Let's go with that. So the very first book I put out, it came out officially on August 18th, and that was Rise of Dresca. And now the sequel to that, which picks up right where that book left off. I was a little bit unapologetic with a cliffhanger. So brace yourself if you're going to read it. It's short and punchy and action packed, and it will just take you on a wild ride and build up all the way. And then I don't think it's that tough a cliffhanger, but just enough that you'll want more. And that's why I felt a bit of an obligation to make sure that I put the time and the effort in to get the second book out sooner rather than later. And so here we are. I did start well before publishing the first book, so I had some time. But now, Seas of the Zova, the sequel, just came out today.
Man,
So
that's really exciting. How's that feel? You're right on the cusp of hitting the go button. So that's got to be exciting.
I think it feels better this time than the last, which is saying something because when you're putting out your first book, it's a special feeling. You're taking your first steps into a very big ocean, but doing it again makes it feel real. I think the first time it was like, oh, maybe this was a blip. You see a lot of one-hit wonders or first attempts, and then people go and do something else. And for me, it was like, this is me saying I'm committed. I'm loving this story. I want to see where it goes, and I'm not anywhere near being done.
Look at Tim, man. He's right on it. Of course, we all know he's another independent author. He is
good to
on
see
it
that.
right after the interview. Yes, thank you, Tim. As always, man. Joseph Cummings, I'm assuming one of your buddies.
I know. Yeah. Gosh, my best friend Greg's father-in-law. And
Oh, that's
awesome
wonderful.
guy.
Thank you so much for showing up, Joseph. That's
Yeah, thank you
wonderful.
so much.
Such support.
Really
And
appreciate it. Greg must be
Montague.
spreading the word. I appreciate it.
That's cool, man. That's got to be so cool.
Yeah.
EO Montague says congrats on your release, of course. Michael Roberti had him on the other day.
Yeah, that was a fun interview to watch.
It was. You're always there, man. I really appreciate that. That's so fun to see that you're like always one is a loyal viewer, and man, that's priceless. So thank you.
It is a fun space to be. I mean, it's kind of cool because I think we stumbled on each other really by chance. I think you made one post on Twitter that I just happened to see, and I was on for all of, I think, 10 seconds. And I thought something about the way you were talking and even just the whole vibe caught my attention. I checked out your stuff and thought, I'm loving the content. I'm loving what you're saying. And then I checked out the Discord community, and suddenly it was a whole bunch of awesome fantasy authors and reviewers, and a lot of just like-minded people, trying to put themselves out there, supporting indie authors, passionate about these stories that we're putting out. And it was really, I ate it up.
Thank you.
I think a lot of us fresh to being authors, there's that sense of community you're hungry for, but it's not always easy to find,
Man, when we found each other, it was like, it was very fresh. It's always refreshing because I've had my Discord since day one, and I'm glad you brought it up because I really want to find a home for people who really like my channel and want to find like a community within what I represent, which is basically what you just said. Newer authors, indie authors. I also represent traditional published authors. I'm going to have more on the show, but I find my heart over and over again with you guys that work so hard to get your name out there, and it's just a really fun space to be in. By the way, since you brought up the Discord, something that's really cool that I'm doing, and I think it's necessary. I was kind of nudged into it because I was going kind of like with the surprise aspect of interviews, which doesn't always work. I did my interview list, and I'm booked all the way till the end of the year, and then I'm not going to talk about it yet because it's in January, but I've got a really freaking awesome interview in January. I can't wait to talk about it. But it's going to all be available through my Discord first. So if you guys want to hop in there and see what Tim's talking about, please do so. We'd love to have you.
It's helpful too. Especially since you've put out the schedule, it's impressive. Honestly, I love it. Just how many people are there. Getting to come to these daily and chat with other authors and reviewers. Kay's Hidden Shelf there. We met through Twitter, but Kayla's here in Carleton Place, just outside of Ottawa, where I live. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. We're actually doing something soon, me and Kayla. So I didn't know that. Cool. That's something that I would have found. Very excited, by the way, Kayla.
That's cool to hear.
She says, if you do sign copies, save me one of each. I'll buy them whenever we get a chance to meet up.
Absolutely. I'm actually, when I finished the signing at Chapters, so I got to do my first book signing for Rise of Dresca October 1st or 2nd or something like that. It was very beginning of October. And, now part of this, it feels kind of cheating because I did have one or two family members show up and buy like 5
That's copies. Never cheating.
Okay. Well, it definitely elevated the numbers, but then beyond that, I got to meet so many new people, just passing by. A lot of people just came and said, wait, are you the author? Can we, can you say?
People are always, including myself, impressed to meet any author of any kind, because I think I had this preconceived notion prior to doing this channel that authors were like in the same group as actors or singers, unapproachable. And if you do, they're probably not even going to notice you. I was so wrong. So wrong. My bookshelf is full of these amazing authors that I've talked to and that are to come. Just so happy to talk to me and so happy to send me a book or so that I could talk about them or talk to them and see if I'm interested in them. Because it makes a lot of sense now that I'm in the space. That makes a lot of sense.
And like when I think of, I got to do my first signing in the Chapters that I grew up going to. So that was kind of a cool feeling. But if thinking back, I don't remember ever seeing this happening. It feels like something that's always existed. And yet I never saw a book signing, not once when I was younger. Maybe I was just too young to care. I don't know. But I don't know what I would have done. If I saw an author, whether or not I knew their book, would I have had the courage to just approach, So I had, and I've heard nightmares. I have heard darker stories of people sitting there, hoping someone comes by and no one talks to them, and yet it was the opposite. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun just having people stop by and say hey and chat about the book. A 13-year-old kid with his mom who like by the time I finished telling him about the book, he was begging for a copy, and I think that just was the best feeling I've ever had in my life.
Well, so kind of hitting on that, Charlie Cavendish, another always viewer. I can always bet Charlie's going to be here. He is an Australian gentleman, close to Sydney, I believe. And you know what? I'm a little jealous because I know it's just on the cusp of summertime there, right? And we're on the cusp of the old winter sledge on the way, but that's all right.
Yeah.
I'll imagine.
Racing for,
I actually like the winter, so
yeah. I mean, I'm here in Ottawa, so we've got the Rideau Canal, which, is just incredible to skate on. We've got, we're close enough to Quebec to go snowboarding on some really wonderful hills, so yeah, I've always been a fan of winter.
Are you a cross country skier at all?
I've tried it maybe 2 or 3 times, and no, I would rather go snowshoeing and take it slow.
See, my dad grew up in northern Michigan, Grayling, Michigan, the Au River. And, we get some snow here in Ohio, but it's usually muddy and it's just not a true snow. I grew up between Ohio and northern Michigan having much a better winter experience. It's beautiful. The pines constantly have the snow sitting on them. And I'm sure you get to see that a lot where you're at as well.
Yeah.
So my dad always told me that he did the cross country skiing, and that sounds fun, but there's never enough snow here. Of course, snowmobiles, fun. That was always fun. Reminiscing a little bit.
Ottawa is, it's just small enough a city, so it's about 1 million people, and although it's always growing, but it's just small enough that you still have lots of green. And so you really get to enjoy those nice, winters where you have the mix of trees and snow and nice paths along the river. So you can, some people do cross country skiing there. I prefer just hiking or again, snowboarding. I mean, I haven't done it as much these last few years, but it's a hobby for sure.
John Douglas, another loyal viewer. Thank you so much, John, and hail everybody. He's a hailing guy. He likes to hail things, and I think I've caught on to that.
Yeah. I saw Charlie said earlier, the beard game going on is strong, and I appreciated that comment quite a bit. So.
Yeah, you do. I meant to comment on that. And you can grow way more hair than I ever will.
I am perpetually afraid that one day that's going to end, but for now,
at the end of the day, man, if it ever happens, that's awesome. And at the end of the day, if it happens, man, there's always a razor, man. Just bite the dust.
I've been there. I used to have much shorter hair. It was only the last maybe 5 or 6 years that I really started growing it out, just experimenting, and I was shocked that I could grow as much as I can.
But
awesome. Before that, when I had short hair on a dare one time, one friend shaved, we were watching the A-Team, and one friend dared another friend to do a mohawk on the spot. And he said, yeah, why not? So we did it.
Why not?
Then someone turned to me and said, hey, Tim, you too. And I kind of copped out. I said, if I do the same thing he just did, it's going to be lame,
How unoriginal.
Yeah. I don't want comments like that. So I made them a deal. I said, if you come up with something original, I promise you I will do it. And so we continued watching the movie. And 5 minutes later, one of the guys sitting behind me leaned forward and he said, Friar Tuck.
Nice.
So that happened instead. So he shaved off the top. And
I get what you're saying now.
Yeah, a monk haircut. And I mean,
here we call it the old the bowl haircut, right?
Yeah. I looked like an old man for sure. But we shaved like right under the ring as well, so it was very, very explicit. Jim
Carrey and Dumb and Dumberer.
Yeah,
well, he wasn't in that, but who represented him? Yeah,
at the time I was the treasurer. So this was. I mean, a little bit about me. I used to be a pastor, and so
I love that.
So I know we were going to talk a little bit, but I was in Bible college at the time when this happened, so training to go into ministry, and I was the treasurer of the student council. But part of what we did was we ran chapel services open to the community, but mostly it was within the school. But because I was the treasurer, I was in charge of offerings. So going up in front of everyone and saying, hey, we're supporting this charity this week. So, if you got any spare money, throw it in. Yeah. So I decided to have some fun because I had this new monk haircut that no one had seen. And I stayed away that night.
So so you have no hat on, right?
Well, no, I wore a hat and I walked in, but and I snuck into some rooms where I got some brown sheets and a big black scarf. So I
Nice.
tied the brown sheets around myself. I tied the scarf, and I walked in holding a Bible, kind of like Monty Python, the guy,
Yeah.
the monks and I started doing the Gregorian chant, just walking in. And so this whole gym full of people just stands up on their feet, like roaring, laughing, taking pictures. By now I've pulled the hat off, and I'm, it's just like this.
Oh
Oh,
man, I can
it was,
imagine, like, because a lot of people go to church, and including myself, it's a very serious
mhm.
thing, and it's always nice when you have a pastor or somebody like yourself. uh what was your job at the time? You said
Well, so
treasurer.
at this point, I was still studying and training, but I
Okay,
was the treasurer of the student council, which meant I was doing the offering talk. So I was about,
so
so I
you
get
made
up
it
there and I do
fun.
a full on offering talk, right? Raising money, but dressed as a monk, just having fun with it.
Yeah, and I think people, man, definitely appreciated that, and I'm sure that you saw that the offering was a little, maybe a little higher that day.
Our numbers might have spiked a bit. Yeah, it's hard to compete with
Just
that after the fact, but
people were feeling the spirit, man. I love it.
yep. Oh
Bards
yeah,
and
that
books,
was a
man.
good memory. Yeah, so I
Bart,
hope I never have that haircut, accidentally going forward. That's where that was going. But at the time I rocked it, I think I can safely say.
yeah, no, that's a wonderful story, man. We got Bards and Books here. If you haven't heard of his channel,
Yeah,
he's
no, we've talked back
very
and forth
intelligent.
too. Yeah.
I just I just saw his post, man. You sent him a book.
Yeah, I did. I don't know
Oh,
if I've seen it actually, but that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, oh, you got to check it out. He did a little short, man. It does you justice. I promise. He always does. And when he reads it, he will do you justice. He's a very intelligent young guy. Great channel.
Yeah, well, we connected, funny enough, because again, on your Discord, but through that, I checked out Usman's Goodreads channel and
Mm,
noticed that we have a lot of common past interests in books that we read, including some that had a very direct interest on Rise of Dresca and Seas of the Zova. And I just immediately had to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I found someone else who read some of these books.
yeah,
Very
that's so
cool.
cool. I know that he was into some definitely niche books. So it's like when you find those people who stupid Nat that are into similar interests that aren't huge books. It's really fun.
Yeah,
Nick Horvath, I gotta shout this guy out, man. One of those
absolutely.
guys that I'm reading his book right now, Sledge versus the Labyrinth, and man, yeah, like what they say, the chats go the Aussie NZ, which I didn't know this, but people, and tell me if I'm wrong in the chat. New Zealanders call each other Kiwis. Didn't
Mm.
know that. So what I've looked up, and I'm going to speak with him eventually. He played pro basketball in New Zealand. He's like 6'10",
Okay. Yeah.
uh, a physicist, studied physics, played basketball to writer. And I'm telling you guys, if you like a puncher, just witty, punchy, violent, but for a reason, with some heartfelt stuff, with
Yeah.
like it's just good. It's just good. So Nick, you're doing a great job. Can't wait to speak with you. You're 5 inches taller than me at 6'10". I don't meet many.
I
I'm
get it.
6'5".
I'm 6'4", so the exact same thing.
Oh,
When I
you
do meet
you
someone
are.
taller, it's always a shock.
I can spot
not
him out of
surprising.
Walmart. Like that
Yep.
guy's taller than me.
Yep.
And my wife's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I said, "You just don't,
I
you
just
don't see
always
it."
end up thinking, oh, this is what everyone's been feeling. It's kind of
Yes. And then
funny.
there's like super freaky tall people where you're
Yeah.
like, I'm 6'5" and I have to look up. Well,
Tallest
that's
guy
why
I
I
admit, I
didn't.
think was about 7'2", and that was
That's Shaq,
yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Shaka 7. Yeah.
7'2" with a size 22 foot. I wear.
Wow.
What size is your shoe?
13.
Okay, I'm like between a 15 and a 17,
Okay. Yeah.
and
So
it's
not
the
quite.
width. Like my it's like huge. My foot is so wide. I can't find Nikes. I love Nike shoes, but
Yeah.
your boy's got a special order those bad boys.
Oh yeah, even 13, hard to find.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worse or better. My feet are narrow and long. And just
Okay.
it can be a pain. Especially dress shoes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the
100%.
blisters are a real struggle.
Um, Skechers makes a decent dress shoe that's big. I've
That good to
had a
know.
couple.
Okay.
So
Sketches. Yeah.
yeah, you gotta check them out. So EC Greaves here from New
AC.
Zealand. Yes.
It's awesome.
Daughter of the
Yeah.
Beast, or
Yep.
yeah, Daughter of the Beast. I always get, because he's got Daughter of the Beast, Sister of the Dead, Mother of the Bond. So if you don't know your titles, you're gonna mess them up. But you
I
know, I got
always remember Daughter of the Beast, though. I don't know if there's a correlation here or some influence, but you know, growing up in the '90s, we had Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and
yeah,
there was a Digimon movie that came out right when I was at that perfect age to really love it. And one of the like, not evil, but one of the, let's say, villain Digimon monsters
yeah,
is almost exactly what you see on that cover of Daughter of the Beast. So it freaks me out every
man.
time I
Well,
see
now
it.
I
It's
gotta
wonderful.
show it.
Yeah, if you have it, absolutely.
Well, he sent me all three, and I'm getting ready to actually dive into them. Yeah, look at that,
Yeah,
guys. It's
yeah,
very
that's
beautiful.
exactly it. I don't know. It makes me think of Digimon for some reason. And Tim Wolfier says Dawn of the Beast 2 and 3. Yep.
Yeah, wow, everybody's so much faster with me with these chats, man. Like, so if I miss something, guys, I'm so sorry. It's sometimes it's hard to keep up. Corey Ratliff in the house, another indie author.
Hey, Corey,
Come
yeah.
up north, Matt. Man, I love the north. If me and my wife ever get like our dream home, we're gonna get like a house on the lake up north.
I think it's tough for me because we also have all the Quebec lakes so close, and that is just beautiful, out of this world cottage country. I think
Ooh,
my dream home would be there. You know,
Quebec.
excuse me. You've got, you know, rolling hills just covered in forest and huge rock outcroppings, and then, you know, glorious snowboarding hills, and then lakes, just endless smaller, you know, cozy lakes. You just
Yes.
spend forever out there. It's beautiful.
If my wife is watching, she's taking notes right now, Tim.
Absolutely.
I'm a
Even just a
Canadian.
visit for cottage country, that's the
Yep.
place to go, I would say, hands
Awesome.
down.
That's wonderful to know, because that's just a drive and a visa. So
Yeah,
we'll have to do that.
absolutely.
Kay's Hidden Shelf, Kayla. I'm just going to call you Kayla. I think we're at that point. I'm the Canadian who dislikes winter. The saving grace is hot chocolate for me. You know, after seeing your videos, Kayla, lots of them, I can definitely see you reading a book with, like, you've always got this cozy setting. That's something you do very well. It's an honest, cozy channel you're running. It's wonderful. So keep doing your thing.
I think I watched a video the other day about baking some good from one of
Yeah,
your books, and I thought, oh, that looks good, you know.
things
And
that
so
you
I can
didn't even
imagine
know that,
that.
like,
I think it was a
yeah,
cinnamon roll.
ooh, cinnamon rolls. My
Yeah.
wife is definitely taking notes still. She's about to, I'm sure she's subscribed to your channel, but if not, she will be now. Yeah, so there's things that she incorporates. And I'd love to know, is like your bookshelf actually hidden? Like, do you have like this door that I see on YouTube or like TikTok all the time, where it's like, it's a bookshelf like in your living room, but then you like knock 3 times, hold your tongue out, and like pull a book, and it flops into this old like other room.
And the real labyrinth of books appears, you know,
Oh,
behind a secret door. Oh yeah,
my dream. 100%.
absolutely.
Michael Roberti says, let's see. I'm out. Have a great time, folks. Thank you so much for popping in, Mike. I'm sure he's
Yeah,
gone by
thanks,
now
Mike.
because I'm super slow here. John says, beard game good, guys, but I like my Riker beard. Sleek, professional. When you think
That's
our
fair.
beards aren't professional, John? This is a
I think I
professional
get it.
beard.
I went through a phase of trying to tame this monster, and that it's just no. So I don't know if it's different follicle types or whatever. We can get into the science of it all, but my biology and a nice, tame, sleek, straight beard are never going to agree. This is Viking blood to a core, and it's just not going to happen.
Speaking of being Viking to the blood, I'm pure like descendant of the Danish Severin Sorensen.
Oh man,
When I do write my book, my main character will be Severin. I love
nice.
that name. Nick says, "Thanks, brother. Hyped to have a chat. I played against Yao Ming, which this dude's like 7'6", I believe. Before the game, he was doing a calf stretch using the backboard. Oh my gosh!
Oh,
can you imagine?
That's wild. I mean, that's,
incredible.
you know, either way, I feel like you'd have to be at some interesting angles to pull that off regardless. So that's wild, but
he's stupid tall. I know he's like 7'6". So kind of let's get back to your books, man. We kind of got
Absolutely.
off on a tangent here.
Love it. I am not complaining at all.
Uh, so would you give us kind of like the blurb for your series?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, now that it's 2 books, I guess I kind of have to.
Yeah, go a little broader if you need to.
Yeah.
Just don't
Yeah.
spoil nothing, or else people will be like, "Hey, Matt, what the hell?"
Yeah. So without, I was thinking about this before. I was thinking, okay, how can I even talk about both without really spoiling? Because the second really picks up from the first. All you really need to know going in is that. So the title of the series itself is The Draymare Chronicle, and everything you encounter in these books, every force of evil in all its different forms, so monsters, to a point dragons. I won't get into the technical side of that, but there's dragons, there's monsters, there's mind control and altering and conspiracy and all these different things going on, and everything pulls back to this single source of evil in the world that I've created, and that's the Draymare. And so it's this evil parasitic organism.
Wow.
You know? So there are hints of sci-fi, but it's still very much meant to be a fantasy series at the core.
Love it.
Yeah. So brace yourself in the second book, Seas of the Zova.
Mhm.
There is more of a sci-fi slant that I think is very necessary to tell this story.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that, dude. I love when people because my wife's looking for a thriller fantasy, and she, as hard as I try to get her on these, the fantasy that I love, and
Yeah.
she's not there yet. I will get her there.
I saw your tweet. I think I even posted on it.
You did.
Kind of saying the same thing. And honestly, so I'm like, I don't say this just to self-promote. I say this is
I trust you.
exactly what I meant my book for when I wrote both of these, but very much the first one in particular. The first, even just the length, is meant to be a bridge. So my books I've kept both of them shorter. The second one's about 50 something thousand words, and the first one was about 53, 54. So
Okay.
I mean, that's even shorter than the first Harry Potter, And I did that very, very, I wouldn't even say strategically. It was because I remember the books that got me hooked back before I would have ever dared one of these longer epics, which I love reading. I read the entire Wheel of Time, series, 14 books.
Wow.
On average, I think they're 800 pages, and I read that
huge.
in like 4 months, about 2 years ago.
I think that was the first thing you and I talked about, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, you know what? We talked about that, and we talked about James Rowland's.
Yes, James Rowland. Man, you know me, I'm a big fan.
If you want to know my books in a nutshell, if I could put it like that, as simply as it gets, it's take some of the sci-fi and thriller from James Rowland's The Judas Strain, throw in a little Andromeda strain from Michael Crichton, so a little more sci-fi, and then throw in the Wheel of Time, and then just make it shorter, and you've got my series in a nutshell.
So my deal here. I like to talk to people before I read their book, and I'm super pumped, dude.
Yeah, but that's the point too, is because it's shorter, and because I write with I like to think it's a punchier style than maybe your average longer book. So it's meant to be easy to read, and that was a big focus for me was accessibility. Was someone I talk to people all the time who say, I'm so busy, I don't have time for these big books, or I find I just doze off after too much. I wanted to write something intense that keeps you going, and then you're done. So you have that satisfied feeling of, oh my gosh, I finished a book. Great. I want another one. And then my next one is out for you now,
I love it.
So I think I can confidently say people who love fantasy and little hints of sci-fi will love my book regardless. But people who've never maybe dabbled in it, that's who I really want to try and hook, Hopefully my book can be a bridge to these longer books that like that I love, but I know people aren't necessarily ready for it. It's not a...
One thing that I noticed too that I really like it. I like your page color. I had
cream
to
color all the way. It had to be cream.
Yes, I love it, man. Now, one of the very first books, Malthus, Necromancer Unchained by Casey Sutton, was one of the first books I reviewed in my very first interview. it had white pages, and I didn't like it. And I told him about it. And honestly, I'm coming around to the white pages. I'm reading them more often, and I have a light. So I read my books at nighttime. So I have a warmer light, like not like an ambient warm light that I use. So even if I'm not feeling the white pages, that helps. But I'm coming around. But the thing I was going to say is I like the size of your font. The font is it's easy to read. It's not much bigger than the font. I don't know what normal size font is. I haven't formatted a book yet, but it's a little bit bigger. It's not, but what you get when you look at the pages, if I'm sitting here reading, it's not intimidating. And that is so important. When you format a book.
Very much by design. So, you know, I thought, okay, I'm an indie author. I can take some liberties because no one's going to stop me. And so I took a page out of accessibility standards online, because that's one area where the publishing industry just has not caught up whatsoever. Because everything we know about human psychology, everything we know about what's going to reduce reader fatigue, so people can actually, you know, enjoy your book without these natural causes causing them to drift away, you know, is that slightly larger font size and spacing are incredibly helpful for keeping people's attention, you know? And so you have governments even following these policies. You have bloggers and newspapers.
You're ahead of the game, homie.
They learned this so early, and it's why they have so much of the public's attention.
I love it.
And I thought, let's try this. Let's just give it a try. And, you know, it also means no indents, because if you have spaced paragraphs, you really don't need them. And they actually, I tested it, they're jarring. If I kept the indents, it would have been jarring. So things like that, you know, I
didn't even notice.
Yeah. Like
I really didn't.
I find I'm so used to reading online now, right, where this is the norm, that I don't notice anymore when I read in my own books. And it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure to put that up there because what I'm trying to say, I really want to get across as much as what you're saying right now. It's very easy to read, and not only that, it feels good. It's not huge, so like you said, punchy to the point, and it's a series. So if you want some more, there's more coming.
Yeah. My absolute minimum is 6 books. So what I'm more than prepared to write at this point is 6. When I first sat down, I had kind of a mapped out, light, relatively loose outline. And I immediately realized, oh, wow, like word count, this is already building up. And I didn't want it to be this long, but I have to tell this story. This is going to be at least 300,000 words.
Yeah.
Once I realized that, I split it in 6. And that's just the first story arc in this world, you know?
So I had a chat to read a little bit, and the very first paragraph and a half I would love to read if you don't mind.
Absolutely, sure.
Awesome. So this is the prologue, and I hope that I get the name. Is it Ellerin?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I say.
Yeah, that works for me. Hey, I am not one of those authors who gets too caught up in pronunciations.
Well, but see, I want to say it the way that you want me to. So is it Ellerin?
Ellerin is how I would say it.
I want to say it like you meant it. Ellerin pressed her back again. So this is the prologue called the Zerakim.
Yeah.
Okay, the Zerakim. The prologue called the Zerakim. And this is for anybody who may want me to be an audiobook narrator, because I'd love to do that.
I saw a question in the chat before you get started asking if I intend to do audiobooks. And yeah, I mean, I've been curious about doing some vocals training. Just because I wanted to, you know, maybe do that myself. You know, I think that'd be a nice extra touch. So yes, hopefully not too long term, maybe next year, once I've finished the others. I'm hoping to do the rest over the course of another year, and then I am hoping to do audiobooks for all
people.
of them.
Love audiobooks, and you know, for a lot of people, it's going to work, it's coming home from work, it's going to bed at night. It's just, you know. Me personally, I absolutely love to incorporate it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and read what really stood out to me from the beginning. Cool. So this is the prologue, the Zerakim. I'm going to try to say it again. Ellerin. Ellerin pressed her back against the sharp cliff rocks, panting as she sucked in the stale, toxic air. Her team huddled together around the corner. felt the fumes scraping their lungs as much as she did. They wouldn't have thought much of her forced, frantic breathing. They didn't know. They had to die. Doesn't that catch on? I love it.
It's so funny because I resisted the idea of including a prologue so hard. And it was about 3 chapters into writing it. I realized that this character had to okay. I just saw a comment I have to get back to, but that I think is hilarious. And so keep that book handy. But I remember thinking, I have to introduce this character sooner, and I know exactly the story I want to tell, which was her initiation, so to speak. And that's all I'll say. If you've read that first chapter, then yeah, it's. I think if you read the first 2 chapters, the prologue and chapter 1, you will have a very good idea of what to expect from the series. The level of violence, I tried to go for intense but not grotesque. That's something I was very passionate about, finding that line.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, but those 2 chapters, they will, if I've done my job right, they will hook you, because I reread them so often. It's some of the most fun I've ever had as an author was just perfecting. Well, you'll see.
Yeah. So it's very hard for me not to read the rest of these paragraphs on the first page, but so you've done a good job. If I could, I would also, I think I'm doing you a solid by doing this, because it's a wonderful. She'd been planning these murders for months, but her resolve was untested. She knew there'd be no going back once it started. She'd have to be quick.
Yeah.
It really does. It gives you a sense of what's going on. I need to know. And yes, Kay, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
All right.
If you scroll back up, my best friend, all the way back from grade 7 when we met.
Yes, who is it?
Greg Ladawning left a comment. I know I saw it somewhere up there.
Well, I'm going to find it for him, because
I think he said something about a beard strainer, but before, I can't remember if it was before or after that, but he mentioned the copyright page. So,
okay. Yes. I'm glad he did.
I don't know. Yeah, so it's funny because it's something I snuck in that anyone watching this is now going to know to look for it. But I hoped most people would miss it, and those who caught it, it'd be a nice little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my way of showing my appreciation to friends and family without giving an actual dedication page. I threw it right into the copyright page in the most snide way I could possibly think of, and so far everyone seems to have loved it.
Is this it? No, that's not it. I'm trying to find it still. The copyright line is clever, genius. So, if you believe yourself reflected,
when you see it, you'll see it.
Okay, so I thought you were talking about the generalizing of your subgenre here, but give me a second, folks, because I got to.
So if you look just above that, it's the disclaimer. So I've got the standard disclaimer of I can even open it here. I did have my book beside me just in case, and so the classic disclaimer of this is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual events, locales, or persons is entirely coincidental. Pretty straightforward. Yeah. I thought I'd have some fun. So I don't know if you want. I can read the next line, or you can.
Yes, please do.
So then this is what I added, just for kicks, right above the ISBN and all the rest. So again, I don't know. This is your copyright page. This is supposed to be as official as it gets. And what I said, was if you believe you see yourself reflected in the pages that follow, try to remember. There's no way the author likes you enough to incorporate you into his work.
I didn't notice that. I didn't. I love that. And me, I'm rushing through it and I didn't catch it, but I love that. That's wonderful.
Well, who reads a copyright page, right? So
Yeah.
that was I don't know. I try to throw in little Easter eggs like that here and there when I can.
That's good to know, especially talking to people right now. Now they'll be more like, I got to read everything about this, make sure I didn't miss anything.
Fair warning, my book, I tried to keep it as simple and accessible as possible all the way through. But for both our sakes, don't skim. Let it pull you along. Stop when you need to. That's fine. But if you
I've never understood skimming. Never understood it. Like, I think not even as like a quick reading strategy, because us as reviewers look for those, but still want the whole story. It's like, doesn't work for me. I can't skim. It doesn't. And if I'm going to read a book, I have to respect it and the author enough to read every single word.
Yeah, I get lost, and you spend so much time just trying to catch on to the arc of what's going on. It's not worth the trouble. It's more work to skim to me than it is to actually just read the whole thing. So,
Montague says I purchased both just now. That's wonderful, man. Awesome. That's so cool.
I hope you enjoy it. I really do.
Throwing up the praise hands for EL. Yes, EL is
shout out.
She's up in here. Nick Horvath. That's why lean writing is the best. Every word counts, buddy. I agree with you, and I know you abide by that rule of just reading your book.
Yeah, I'm huge on that. I think, I think Hemingway had it right in that sense. He's one of the first I encountered to really, hit home. And those simple, again, there's nothing wrong with saying something in its simplest form. Often that's exactly how it needs to be said.
Yeah, especially yes, I 100%. I'm all for poetic writing when it needs to be poetic, but at the same time, it's like, if you're trying to drive home a point, let's not make it confusing. Yeah, because not everybody can read at the same level other people's can.
So makes a great point there about skimming. Once you've lost trust in the efficiency, and it's funny because one of my favorite books of all time was Les Mis by Victor Hugo, unabridged. So I've read the whole long original thing, and it goes on so many tangents. I think he is the only author of all time I will ever make that exception for, where I loved those tangents. But otherwise, and fantasy, I think fantasy more than maybe other genres can fall into this trap. Where I don't really, unless it has some relevance, I love a richly built world. And I'm trying to build a really rich, evocative, intense, well thought out, well mapped out world. But if I'm talking about the consistency of tree bark or something, you better believe there's a reason. Most of the time, I won't. You won't have mundane, boring details unless some twist is going to hit you on the next page, hopefully.
No, I love that because we all know the consistency of tree bark. So even if you just say the consistency of tree bark, we've got a good idea of what you're talking about.
Yeah, doesn't need to be branched out for an entire page.
The flaky brown, resistant chapter. Because it's alive, tree bark, naked underneath. So what are some themes that you explore in this series?
I think at the heart of it is me trying to understand and map out and teach about evil. I think at its core, if I had to nail down one theme, like I said, everything sort of ties back to this one organism that is spreading through this fantasy world and manipulating events. And its entire purpose is to sow chaos and destruction and suffering. And it doesn't even matter because it's not even a fully conscious organism, right? So from the perspective of evil, it doesn't matter who wins as long as everyone else is either under its control or suffering, or wars. So wars are breaking out. Dragons are ravaging the countryside. Conspiracy is everywhere. Monsters and horror. Like all of this to me, it was a way for me to kind of, how do I put it? Not just understand maybe some of the things I've experienced in my own life, but I think we all do.
Yeah,
at some 100%. Point in your life, you are going to come face to face with some dark things. And I think, I've said before that, not here obviously, but I've said before that I don't think you can properly portray evil So a lot of most fantasy at some point touches on themes of good and evil, but
Mhm.
I don't think you can properly touch on evil without some element of horror.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
so there is, some definite shock to some of these books, and it's not there just to provide a scare. Although I do like a good thriller, and I do like a good.
Ooh,
I am a horror fan for sure.
Nick Horvath. Go back to that.
Yeah. To me,
Um,
like as far as the theme goes, though, I wanted to hopefully somewhere in the mix of this provide maybe not solutions but hope. So in the
I
midst of
love
all that
that.
darkness, trying to weave through the story themes of hope and redemption and learning to persevere, learning to fight back, learning to stand together.
I love that. And
Yeah.
Montague does, as an author would, the nature of good and evil is rich soil. It
Very,
sure
very
is.
well. Yeah.
I love that, man. And it's always telling, the comments that I get when you're an author. It's like, I know that you've written something by
Yeah.
just the way that you speak.
Absolutely.
Tell us about how being a pastor has shaped your writing.
Yeah. So I mean, that's 2015 was around the time I left. So that's a solid 8 years now, But
Mm-hmm.
it is amazing how much, those experiences, just heavy involvement, and then obviously ministry itself. That was 13 years of my life, and that doesn't just go away. Still in touch
No,
with
it
so many
doesn't. Even
friends.
if you've changed as a person, and what you want to do in your life,
Yeah.
spirituality has a big, whether if you're talking about spirituality in a fictitious book, it has to stem from somewhere. You have to get
Yeah.
your, whether you're, and it doesn't necessarily have to be of religion, of a Christianity faith or anything, to each their own. And I will fully support anybody and everybody's, to a certain point. I
Well,
can't
to
believe in
me,
certain things.
like it's interesting because I it's been a journey for sure since leaving ministry, because faith was more of a struggle. After the fact, it was something that I then had to wrestle with, because what did it mean to realize that this vocation isn't for me, and then had to struggle through years after that. But where I was going with that is that so much didn't change. Even these 8 years for some is not that much. For me, it's felt like a long time. And yet
Yeah.
there's so much about me that just fundamentally can't change. And so those years were so incredible, and so much good was rooted in me that I'm so grateful for,
Yeah.
beyond even just the relationships, and beyond just the faith, and beyond just everything that happened over those years for the good.
Mhm. Yeah,
So it comes to, oh, sorry.
no, please. I'm sorry. I thought you were summing it up, but please go
Yeah,
ahead
well,
if you had more to say.
when it comes to the book, I mean, that's the thing, is for me, I just kept thinking back to those years, and I kept thinking, there's so much great secular entertainment and secular books out there, but there's a lot too that is just harder and harder for even me to read, and certainly for all my old friends, and for people for whom faith and even ministry is such a huge part of their lives that it dictates everything. And so
Yeah. Yes.
I think a few interviews ago, I think it might have been with ZS Diamante, actually. I'm pretty sure, talking about clean fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. Very.
You know?
Yes. That was a
And it's
fun
funny, I
one.
hadn't even heard the name said before that point. The
Me
idea that
neither.
there's even a whole subgenre now being called clean fantasy. Now, so I would like to call my books clean fantasy. The violence, like I said earlier, I would call, again, I strove so hard to make sure the violence was intense. I wanted it to be appropriately intense, so I wasn't just shying away from, again, the shock of evil. It's not, when it comes around a corner and hits you in the face.
It's not subtle. Yeah.
Exactly.
In real life, it's not a subtle thing. Evil is evil, and it's not
Yeah.
going to be. It's not going to be forgiving.
Now, at the same time, you're not going to see, I don't think, maybe with one exception early on, but maybe. Again, my friend Greg is here, and his dad read the book, and his only comment was, "Wow, this is a little more violent than I expected from Tim." He still said he loved it, but
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, if you can watch Lord of the Rings or Gladiator or I mean, now I'm biased because I was watching movies like that at 10, at 8 and 10 years old, So, I mean, I had early exposure to maybe.
So violent at a realistic rate and theme, but also not glorifying the violence. I think
like
there's a middle ground for
nothing,
that.
no shade on Game of Thrones, but not for me,
Yeah, no, I think you've probably heard me say that a couple times.
Yeah.
The season was a little too sexual for me.
Yeah.
Personally, if you loved it, that's great. I'm glad. But man, I'm trying to watch something cool with my wife now. A little bit, if there's a reason, that's whatever. But gosh, at the rate in which you're visually seeing some very explicit scenes, it's just very
how often
uncomfortable.
It gets thrown in for kind of no other reason than because it seems like everyone gets more and more numbed to these things, and so more gets thrown in, right?
Yeah.
And to me, I wanted to write something that I think, again, secular or religious audiences can, and I hope will, enjoy this book. But that's the point. It's clean enough that someone who's not looking for those things is going to be able to enjoy my book.
That's wonderful, man. I like that. So, where did your love for literature come from, or when, if you want to talk about it?
Yeah. It's funny. I think, again, this is another thing out of interviews. I feel like most fantasy authors I meet at some point reference The Hobbit.
Yeah, 100%.
So of course. Now, funny enough, for me, my mom read me The Hobbit when I was, I think, 5. And
wow, you're exciting me.
Like, and it just went over my head. I was barely reading on, I barely knew how to read Cat in the Hat at that point, So I don't remember anything from what I heard, but then we also owned the very old animated version of The Hobbit, and so I loved that.
I still need to watch that.
Oh, you do. Classic. Absolute classic. And
I have to.
But it honestly, it probably wasn't until I was around 10. If I remember correctly, we had a Scholastic Fair. I think they do those in the US, right, as well. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, so the Scholastic Fair came by, and I saw this one cover that stood out, and I thought, I want to read that. It looked cool. So I got my mom to buy me the first book of the Deltora Quest series by Emily Rhoda. And those, and so this is where Usman from Bards and Books and I have chatted, because this one, I bought that book. I read it that night. It was about 27. I looked it up more recently. It was something like 27,000 words. So roughly half the length of what I just wrote. But that's the thing, is me at 10 years old, that was the perfect length, just long enough to keep me up till 3 a.m, but short enough that I could read it and not, totally lose myself, and move on to something else. And so I was hooked. So I immediately was begging for the next book, and then the next, and then the next. Then I migrated from that to longer books, and it never stopped. And people knew me as the guy who wanted more books. So then this is the great thing for me. I can say safely that most, if not all, of my favorite books of all time have all been recommendations. Once people know you as the guy to give books, next thing you know, you have, right, like funded James Rowland as one example. The Judas Strain was the first book by him I read, and
such
a family friend.
Good, man. Oh, and he's on point with his religious accuracy too. Like, he's very good, and it's not like gosh, I hate using this term, but like a Bible thumper throwing religion in your face. It's just accurate, and it's fun, and it's like, what if, or but a lot of people over here are saying,
I like this comment.
And another one was like, although if you want to read intense stories of sex, violence, read the Bible. War, betrayal, infidelity, murder, some things that are hard to understand. Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that.
There's a lot in there that frankly is more jarring than most of what I've ever read.
And Michael says, if you can read the book of Revelation, you can handle pretty much anything in fantasy. It's scary, man, especially if you read that young. But I also like what Kayla says. She says, Scholastic book fairs shaped so many childhoods. Yes, I can remember like good and bad memories, like not having, like, I didn't tell my parents about it or something because I wasn't into books, not having money to go. And then like finally catching, oh my gosh, I love this. Yes, Greg. My very first book was Captain Underpants, homie. Yes, heck yeah. And I think he's still doing his thing. Captain Underpants is in the world still.
Classic. Yep.
Yeah. 100%. My son came home from school with the Scholastic booklet. Yes, I'm glad they still do those, because those were fun to like go home and like circle the ones that you wanted.
Exactly.
Like the Sears catalogs. Now Amazon's doing it, by the way. My son just circled about every single thing in the Amazon one last night.
That is actually really cool. Yeah, no, it was the magazine itself that I ended up bringing home and begging, look at this. This guy is so cool. He's holding a sword. I want this.
Yeah.
I've read 8 books, right?
It's so fun, man.
Yeah, so it's things like that. Like I find most authors I talk to, they one of two ways. You either had that early exposure that got you hooked when you were young, and it can be shows and movies too, but something within the genre that you love, that you then eventually have a story to tell and you want to tell it through the lens of, in this case, fantasy, right? Sure. The other way is a community. You end up like this, where you just end up meeting such incredible people with such passion and so many incredible stories, and you realize, you learn so much from it. I find some of these stories are so enriching. It's like parables, right? You're taking so much out of it that you apply in your own life, or you're just exploring new worlds beyond your own. So sometimes it's an escape. Sometimes it's, sometimes you're going through difficult times in your life and you need that step away to remind yourself, hey, the world can be better, and then for some, it's just this incredibly enriching. I want to, explore a new world and get my own creative, juices going, and then apply it back in my own life, my own business, my own, fantasy has so many applications. I just love it.
It is. It's fun. And I think without, the most real of themes, the most real of experiences, there's no fantasy. It's a beautiful thing. I like what Young Montague says, and I didn't catch that. Thank you, Matt, from Go Read Books. Wonderful channel. My dude, great friend, says he loved that. Young Montague, he said, I love the comment about God's grace. It is. It's about his. It's not ours. Eric Wag in the house. Hi, all. Hello, Eric.
Hey, Eric.
So
and Matt, actually, well, the other Matt, so another great, YouTuber that I sent a book, and I am fairly certain at this point it is long lost. So I'm just gonna have to send another one at this point. if you still haven't received it, then that's what went on there.
That sucks, dude.
I was so ticked. Yeah. I sent 3 that day. So 2 out of 3 made it, as far as I know. So,
well, see, that's just not cool, man. At some point, somebody's got to take a little bit of responsibility for this. I didn't know that. Thank goodness, like everybody who sent me a book, it showed up, and I'm just now understanding. A lot of them are like, "Oh, I'm so glad it showed up." I'm like, "Of course it did. You sent it to me." But now understanding what you're going through, that's weird.
I think sometimes it's at the border, Yeah, exactly. That book ain't coming. So we will fix that, At this rate, I'll be able to send you the next one too. So how's that?
Wow, that worked out even better. So Joseph says, my journey into fantasy started with the Sword of Shannara. So I haven't read that, but I've heard so much about it. And that is Terry Brooks.
Yeah, see, I can't say I've read it either. Yeah,
I think it's Terry Brooks. And if my Terry Brooks, love the original trilogy. They were my second series after Tolkien. It's funny, man. Like I went and I go thrift shopping a lot for books, and I found Terry Brooks, the Shannara Chronicles or whatever, and I brought it home thinking it was book 1. It was book 7. So I'm just like, what can I do with this? I'm going to read it and have absolutely no clue what the heck's going on. So I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to buy the first book.
I think
if it ever sells.
There's a TV series of that, right? Because I think I started watching that and just wasn't really into it, and I think that might have turned me off from finally getting into it.
So I didn't know there was a series.
Need to give it a chance,
Yeah, I didn't know there was a series. So my wife looked at. We were looking for something after the Time or the Wheel of Time because I know you're a fan too. I love this dude. Egwene is a gangster.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
way more of a gangster.
Pulled that off so well. I was really happy with this latest season. I mean, with the exception maybe of the finale for the first season, I was actually very okay with the first.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And
that's again, as someone who's read the whole series.
I understood. Yeah, like I've read book 1 through 3, and for the most part, I understood everything up until like halfway through the second season.
Fair.
And really, it just makes me want to read the books more instead of spoiling it. So, Knoxwitch Book of Life, she says, I have all the Shannara books. I read the first 15. Wow. Lots of times.
Yeah.
So what is that, like 45 books after 3 times each? Wow. Just haven't got around to the rest yet. Well, I can't say that that's unimaginable, because that's a whole lot of books.
I'm like that with another genre I do enjoy reading, not as often lately. I've been so immersed in fantasy, but historical fiction I do
love it.
Which actually had a
You're a
huge
James
influence
Rollins fan.
Sorry?
Yeah, you're a James Rollins fan. Of course you want it.
Yeah, but I mean, even just beyond James Rollins does it so well, where he brings the history into the present, with these incredible
yeah, you're right.
Whereas, like, I'm thinking, for me, the absolute classic would be the 20-book series by Patrick O'Brien, Master and Commander.
Okay.
Or it's called the Aubrey Maturin series, and it follows. It's honestly, if I'm going to give a movie recommendation here, look up Master and Commander with Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
so
that's like our age movie.
Yeah. Oh, and that is so I've never made it past, I think, book 10 or 11 of 20. And they're incredible books, so I always mean to, and I just stop, and then eventually I restart. I feel obliged to start back from the beginning, and I just never make it past this certain threshold. Which is too bad, because I really
This is a good bit of information for you guys. I've had so many printing issues with Amazon, but hey, at least they all do eventually show up. Still waiting on a shipment from Ingram. I hear that that's a real issue, but hey, he's saying they eventually show up. That's a plus.
Well, that's the thing. Like, for me, I wanted to sign the book and then send it. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. So worst case scenario, it might just come down to sending it directly through Amazon without a signature. But if I can, I think I'll see what's going on with our post.
He's not lying. I mean, he does like to sign the books, and like, he's I love it.
Forgive my absolutely messy handwriting, but
brother, you ain't seen here. Let me just show you. I've been writing stuff this whole time. We can relate, my friend.
Fair. Yeah. Well, that looks like printing to me. You don't even want to see my printing. I choose my horrible handwriting or cursive, because my printing is just so absolutely terrible.
Well, it's a lost thing too, by the way. They're not teaching that stuff. It's like, man, I loved reading and writing cursive. They need to you have to sign your name. Yep. I know that there's not much application after that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's still a necessary thing.
I think so. To me, it's quicker for starters. So if you are,
it is quicker.
To me, I don't know why you wouldn't teach the quickest, most efficient way to do it. With the exception of shorthand, you know what I mean? It's the best that you can do.
It's like giving you the whole every single.
You don't have a computer for whatever reason.
Yeah. I think I could probably write cursive faster than I can type at this point, but that will change because I'm going to start writing soon.
Yeah. So my typing speed has definitely picked up.
I'll bet.
Many years. Oh yeah.
Give us a couple authors who you wish you could read for the first time again. Or books.
Well, one I was definitely thinking, this was another gift, another gem of an author I never would have encountered if not for a family friend giving me their copy. I think it's the one I still have, of Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead.
Oh, wow.
And so most people just won't know this series, but it's called The Pendragon Cycle by Stephen R. Lawhead. It's a mix of fantasy and historical fiction, and then Celtic lore and legend.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
So the series itself follows the origins of Merlin and then Arthur, but very much from a Celtic lore perspective. So I'm pretty sure he got like 15 years of university education studying Celtic mythology, Druidic lore, all these old, Celtic tribes in Britain, right?
Yeah.
And he took the history of that and so, Welsh and Irish and old Scottish history and kind of blended it all together with this retelling of the origins of Arthur. So the Roman Empire is sort of fading away, but he also pulls in, this is where it gets a little maybe wonky, it sounds, but it's so beautifully done because he pulls in Atlantis
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's where the fantasy comes in, but it's so well told. So the very first book, Taliesin, shows the demise of Atlantis as one character's origin story, and then it shows at the same time in Great Britain the dawn of Taliesin, who does like very much a historical, maybe somewhat legend figure, one of the most renowned bards or druids to have ever lived.
Wow.
And the history of these two characters meets, after the fall of Atlantis, and from that is birthed one of the best tellings of Arthurian legend I have ever seen. It just incredible writing, so rich, evocative, very smooth writing. That's exactly it. Yeah, thanks, E.L. Montague. I can't recommend a series more. And
that's awesome.
Maybe not there's 5 books. I would only recommend the first 3 this strongly, because the other 2 are kind of thrown in after the fact, and they always felt out of place to me.
I like this comment.
What's this one? Yeah.
Because, man, I haven't thought about this in a while, but Bernard Cornwell is somebody I really, really want to get into. Have you read anything by him?
No, I have not. Yeah,
man, but I hear if
it's an Arthur retelling, I'm more than willing to give it a chance. I love Arthur.
So I have a book that I got. It was what you kind of said. It was a suggestion through a book. I believe it was Matt's fantasy book reviews or Matt's book reviews. I don't know if he has fantasy in front of it, but everybody knows Matt. Very good channel. But it was like a mixture of booktubers and their favorite book, one of which was called Mad Merlin by J. Robert King.
Okay.
Which, if I can grab it real quick, if you guys will stand by. Yeah. And if the green screen gets wonky, it's just part of the business, guys.
All good. And I have to apologize to everyone at the same time. I am in the middle of moving, so this blank wall behind me is going to have a bookshelf and and pictures on the one side. Anyways, blah blah blah. And I'm gonna have my normal desk. Anyways, for now you're stuck with a blank wall because I
that's being human, man. You just moved, right?
Yeah, or I'm still in the thick of it. So yeah,
man. Yeah, you're in the thick of it. I love that phrase. So this is the book I'm referencing.
Okay.
Mad Merlin by J. Robert King, which you're a recommendations guy, so I had to throw it up here. I'll read the blurb. It says the term dark fantasy in its limited sense should that's not the blurb. That's not the blurb at all, guys. Here it is. Merlin, the madman on the heath, clad in rags, wild and irreverent, and the only one with the answers to King Arthur's questions. Merlin, the senile grandfather. So it's basically an Arthur retelling, but from what I understand, and so this is the rest of it. In the tradition of the myths of Avalon and the Mythago Wood, J. Robert King weaves an epic tale of Avalon, Excalibur, and the once and future king, and the mad magician Merlin, as he draws on ideas from the writings of Joseph Campbell to shape and interpret the Arthurian mythos. Here, the eccentric wizard of Camelot, transformed into no less than a fallen god and a monumental tale of the rise and fall of empires, religions, and the role of men in the universe. So he talks about it as his favorite book of all time. The guy, I don't remember the booktuber. I wish I did. I'd give him credit, but he was the reason that I picked this up, and I haven't read it yet. It's through Tor. So yeah, check it out, guys, if you're into the Arthurian kind of deal.
Before we miss the comment, ZS Diamante just stepped into the house.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't looked over. My man, there's some 2 awesome dudes, 3 awesome dudes. You're here, and plus a million more in the chat, of course.
We were chatting back and forth. We went to rival high schools for a period here in Ottawa. Yep.
That's so cool, man.
Such a small world.
It is, and with the internet, it's getting smaller. ZS Diamante runs a TikTok channel that's really, really good, man. Really excited about what he's doing. It's awesome. Go check him out.
We chatted about you earlier, ZS, because we were excuse me, we were talking about clean fantasy and just what that looks like. And And because that was such a big part of your book, and
Yeah.
hearing about that during your interview, I thought, there we go. There's someone actually giving a name to kind of what I was hoping to create. Now, mine has a bit of a darker edge, I think, based on the description. You are very much on my reading list. So
I've started it. I haven't finished it yet, but what an adventure from the beginning.
I'm excited.
It picks up this. I don't remember I know he's a warrior of some sort, and he is kind of passing out, and somebody picks him up and kind of nurses him back to health. And he is just, it's an epic adventure that I cannot wait to continue. And what a beautiful cover too, right? Yeah. I mean, Andy Peliquin, of course, we all know Andy Peliquin, commented on his amazing cover here, and said that it's an amazing, and it is.
Yeah.
The book feels great. The guy does a lot of cool things when he sends you books, so check him out, guys. What's next for you, Tim?
I mean, well, like I said, I at the absolute minimum, I have 6 books mapped out. So this is 2 done and 4 to go, So I mean, at my present pace, if this continues, the goal is to have 1 book out every 4 months.
And, that's ambitious, my bud. That's really cool. That's ambitious. And I think that people can keep up with that too.
Yeah, and that's to me I'm saying that after having tested the pace I can write at, and I do this part-time. I work part-time as a marketer, so a little agency here in Ottawa, and
which goes so hand in hand with what you're doing.
Very much so. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Every day I get to complement what I'm doing in one area with the other, right? So I'm learning about all these things, for work with marketing, and then I'm applying it as an author. And then vice versa. I see what works and what doesn't. I bring it back to work and, try new things with what we're doing for clients. And
that's cool. What do you market?
So, I mean, we do a bunch of different clients. Most of it's like fractional marketing. We step in and kind of take the role of their marketing team. And so it might be blog posts, or it might be, social media campaigns. It might be web design.
So you kind of just work around the individual client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%, man. That's cool, because guess what? I can come to you, and it doesn't have to be food, or it doesn't have to be an idea. It can be what I'm doing, and you're going to help me and use your skills to further my goals.
Exactly.
Yep. Man, that's cool.
It's fun.
I think I'd be a good marketer. I would love to do that.
I have a striking intuition that would probably be true.
So I think that'll go good when I do start writing. But before maybe to get the money to pay Felix Ortiz to do my cover, because that's what I mean, the guy does wonderful covers.
Yeah, I'm always so impressed by these incredible illustrations on so many of these covers that we get to see,
So I do want to touch on this before we go. Your covers, striking, but what was your idea in this? There's 2 different symbols. We've got a diamond, and then let me throw up and a wave.
And a wave,
yeah. So what was the kind of give me a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, kind of going with, the entire vibe is the wrong word. What's the word I'm looking for? Come on, as an author, this is where I'd have the thesaurus.com open on a tab, but jokes aside, yeah, exactly. That there's always a better word. But the point is, going with just the feel I wanted to create for my books. I wanted a simpler cover. I wanted something that would just capture just enough of something in each book that there's some continuity, but not enough to give anything away.
I love it.
And so you've got some Celtic symbology in there too. You've got some Celtic weaves on the spine, which looks awesome on the actual physical books.
It does.
And then Rachel.
It does look different on the physical books. It does. It's
so if you twist it so they can see the spine, it kind of continues over and goes all the way to the back. But so you got Trinity knots on the front here, and Triskella on the second cover. So again, cool. Celtic influence for me is something I really wanted to tie in. And then just very simply, the ruby. I think I actually revealed just a hint more of maybe what's going on there in the second book than I do in the first. But it was so vital that I wanted to make sure that was the symbol on the cover of the first. Again, I don't think I can say more there without spoiling.
That's kind of the point of me asking. Like, I like for people to kind of get a sense based on your cover, what they can expect in the book, and I like that you give a little bit of that, but not too much.
Yeah, you know,
So
it kind of, I'll leave it
no,
at that. And then again, the great thing about the second cover that blew me away, these are not just the colors I asked for, but the feel captured so perfectly. The first cover has kind of that darker, more intense feel, but it's still very elegant, very simple but elegant, right? The second cover, it's funny when you look at like color psychology, even, right? Like that teal partnered with that blue, and just to me, I immediately feel sort of swept in, and like a calming, but also I think of the ocean, and the imagery becomes very clear later in the book when they actually end up in the seas above the continent. And I try to capture that balance between the terrifying nature and mystery of the ocean, combined with the endless calm and the tranquility. And something I try to capture in both books is, I've only seen it done incredibly well by Robert Jordan in The Wheel of Time. He was an author who could make you feel the magic for yourself, And so that evocative experience, was exactly kind of like, in this case, that calming, soothing, almost hypnotic feel, right? Was exactly what I was going for. And Rachel Bostwick, who does these covers for me, just absolutely nailed it,
That was my next question. What was her name?
Rachel Bostwick.
Rachel Bostwick.
Yeah. And just absolutely every time so easy to work with and just nails it. And, I told her this was coming down the pipeline well in advance, but so she had everything ready before I even, placed an order with her. Next thing you know, an hour later, I think she sent me the first draft of the cover, and it was almost exactly what you're just seeing now, just
that is super cool. She had it spot on, and she took what you gave her to the fullest extent. E.L. Lyon says making connections, interacting, giving out arcs. You found a lot of folks in your net. That's really cool. So where can we follow you and purchase your books? I always like to make sure that everybody that watches or will watch will find all the good links in my description. So give me the links for you.
Yeah, so I'll give you the links, but easiest place to follow me is Twitter by far. I'm on other social media channels, but kind of as a maybe a future. I don't know. Twitter is where I feel home, just for my writing style and the audience I'm building and the people I'm connecting with. It seems like everyone is already there, and I'm loving it. So
it's a great place for writers and reviewers.
Really, yeah, maybe Threads will someday catch up. I doubt it. And Instagram.
I still don't like it as much as Twitter. I mean, people can be mad about that or be happy, but it's just the truth. I get everybody that I need and want, and the way that I need and want it through Twitter right now. So unless something comes and sweeps me off my feet, that's where I'm staying. And that's where I think, and I always encourage authors, if they're not on Twitter, to go there, because it's marketing done for you, really.
Yeah.
So I would say
Twitter to follow me, and then Amazon is where to buy all three versions of the books. So all three are available in ebook, hardcover, and paperback. So
awesome, man!
I wanted to make sure the options were there, and I mean, Amazon has absolutely nailed that. They're all matte or however you pronounce that covers. So nice and smooth to the touch.
Oh, matte, yeah.
Matte, yeah.
Yeah, I should know because it's not spelled the same, but we say my name.
See, that would offend me. It'd be like someone saying, that time is supposed to be pronounced Tim. They just
right.
It looks
not the same. It's Mate.
That is how I wanted to pronounce it, and then I kept hearing people say something.
It's like it needs that asterisk, or that needs that little
accent aigu or whatever.
Something, like a little mark.
Yeah.
Well, man, I've had such a fun time. I've looked forward to this. This won't be our last time talking, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Anytime you're releasing something, you can bet that I'll have you on, man. And also as a friend, my guy. You've been a wonderful friend. We talk a lot, and that's going to continue.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I've said it before, but I I mean, I think I even said it in my notes to you, I really appreciate what you do here for authors. Again, both traditional and indie, I mean, frankly, it is a struggle for both in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and most people aren't coming in with some of those background skills in other areas like marketing, for example. And some people
Yeah.
even shy or run away from it because there's a distaste, and then they sit there suffering, hoping someone else will come along and throw them a lifeline, and
Yeah.
something like this does wonders just for getting some of these stories in front of new audiences, and I think
100%.
they deserve to be heard.
So, yeah, like I said, this has been fun. I'm very glad to that you're here, that you've lent me some of your time, that I got to pick your brain a little bit. Like I said, won't be the last time.
Yeah.
Tomorrow at 9 p.m., yours truly will be speaking with Zach Argyle. Super excited. I know he's done some Kickstarters, and he's really big author as far as in the indie fantasy realm. So I'm excited to talk with him. Who would you recommend I talk with?
Oh, that is tough. I feel like all my absolute favorites at this point are ones you've introduced me to.
Oh, thank you, man.
Which means this is really doing a wonderful job. If I had to pick out of ones I've read recently,
It's a hard question.
yeah, I mean, now we met here on your Discord, but have you had Timothy Wolf on? He was
I
in the audience
haven't.
earlier. Okay, so
I'm
that's a
glad you
hands
brought
down.
him up. Yeah, so he knows this. Our plan is I'm reading his book because he won my TBR challenge for November. So I'm reading in November and having him on in December. So I'm glad you said that, and that's a wonderful answer, 100%.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night,
his writing style, his just the themes he explores, everything about his writing, I think deserves more than a fair chance. Yeah.
yeah, and it's been a long time coming. Tim
Yeah.
was one of the very, very first guys to send me his book, and yeah, I'm super pumped to talk with him.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
And he's Tim's Unite.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. Tim squared.
Tim squared. All right, so guys, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. EST Eastern Time, I'm talking with Zach Argyle. I hope you guys are there. And until next time, thank you so much for chatting away, showing up to watch, and Tim, you being here.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you so much for having me, and see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you guys.